Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here, live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night, or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week, at least those in which I am on, by co-host David Fox. And today, the NFL's legal tampering period is finally underway. Yep, it just started today, just started at noon. This is the first time that agents have been able to talk with
It is
teams.
amazing how quickly legally binding contracts can come together, like 15 minutes.
We've all done that, David. We've all, gotten multi-million-dollar contracts stowed and locked away and all the minutia.
I don't know about you, but any terms and conditions agreement that I am given, I read through all of those. It only takes me about 10 seconds. Those are super easy to get through. Those are
right.
You snap through those pretty quick.
Right, because notoriously what they'll do is fill it with approachable and not at all approachable language, approachable
very
verbiage.
Easy,
right, no jargon.
No jargon, just very very layman's terms,
Exactly. And my chair is currently sinking, so it's going to be interesting to watch this back because I can feel myself getting shorter. So it's going to be interesting to watch it back later and see if you can watch me just steadily go down as though I'm on an elevator. And speaking of an elevator, the Buffalo Bills are riding the elevator down because Brandon Beane has done shit today. Kidding. But we'll get into all of it. We'll get into the re-signings and restructures that have went on today. The one free agent signing, the losses that have happened or that have occurred, if you will. And we'll just, I guess most of the show will be what we want to happen moving forward because that's really all we have to talk about because look, we'll have Connor McGovern takes for you, but I don't know how spicy they're going to be. We will have Tremaine Edmonds analysis for you, but again, I don't know how spicy it'll be. So this could be a short show, or we could be here for 2 hours. We'll have to wait and see. But before we get into any of that, David, how are you?
Kyle, the dark is generous, and it is patient. It is the dark that seeds cruelty, that drips contempt into compassion, and poisons love with grains of doubt. The dark can be patient because the slightest drop of rain will cause those seeds to sprout. Our true faces lie in the dark beneath our skins. Our true hearts remain shadowed deeper still. But the greatest concealment lies not in protecting our secret truths, but in hiding from us the truths of others. The dark protects us from what we dare not know. Big news: devastated by Tremaine Edmonds signing with the Bears today.
You cut out there as you explained. As you explained what you...
You know what? If it didn't cut off the poem, I'm okay with that.
No, the poem was good, and the poem was well delivered.
It's not mine at all, by the way. Totally ripped.
We doing plagiarism on this show? Are we stealing content? What are we? A lot of Bill's Instagram fan pages? What are we doing out here? I mean, come on.
Well, hold on. I could say that I got that from the Revenge of the Sith novel. I got it from a janitor at One Bill's Drive. So,
a source.
Who's to say?
We have sources inside the building. Fun stuff. Okay. Before we get into our great analysis here in this great Bills free agent talk, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by our friends at BetUS, who you will hear about from our friend Greg. That was English.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
Promo code COVER1 over there at BetUS. And additionally, make sure to check out our friends at Underdog Fantasy, yet another sponsor of this show and Cover One in general. And David, could you tell us a little bit about Underdog?
I would love to tell everyone about everyone's favorite fantasy site, and that is Underdog Fantasy. Now, if you did not get the chance to draft Josh Allen in your home league this year, in future NFL seasons, you can use Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em contest, and you can win money predicting if Josh Allen will go over his yard total, his touchdowns, completions, and more. If you think Allen to Diggs will go over super well this week, because, you know, what else is there? You can put them both in your Pick'em, predict up to 5 different over-under time money. If you use the promo code COVER1, that's the number 1, when signing up to make your first deposit, Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That is 100 free US dollars. We can't guarantee that. The bank has to guarantee that technically. And depending on the bank that you use, that might be a problem. So don't blame us for that one though. Or Underdog. We're all doing great. But you can use the promo code COVER1 to get yourself $100 free for play at Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today and start winning.
Thank you, Underdog. All right, let's get into this. All right, let's just jump into this Buffalo Bills free agency analysis and reactions, if you will, and also message to the chat, if you will. If anything occurs within the next however long we're on, particularly surrounding the Buffalo Bills, but I guess like any big moves, but mostly if the Buffalo Bills make any signings or trades or whatever, please put it in the chat, because I do not have Twitter up. I'm not sure if David has Twitter up, and I'm sure you guys would see it before us regardless. So please let us know in the live chat if something does occur. And also, just a side note, if Devin Levi signs with the Buffalo Sabres, please also let me know that. Just me personally, I'm intrigued.
Of course.
Okay, let's jump into this now. Again, as I said off top, the NFL's legal tampering period is a go. Bunch of contracts are being agreed to, obviously can't be officially signed until the new league year starts. That's Wednesday at 4 p.m. But, for the most part, you are seeing a lot of big moves happen right now. Again, a lot of these players can, or I guess any of these players can change their minds within the next 2 days. J.D. McKissick, but will they? Probably not. That's a pretty infrequent thing that happens. So for the most part, what you're seeing now is what, will actually occur. And the Bills, again, like we said, have only agreed to terms with one new player, one new face. And we'll get into who that is here momentarily. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what the Bills did with players already under contract to them, just to, I guess, free some cap space heading into this legal tampering period. The one thing that they did, or one of the bigger things that they did, was restructuring / re-signing Matt Milano, adding 2 years to his contract and spreading out some of that money. So Milano had, I think, 1 or 2 years remaining on his deal, gets an additional 2 years tacked on. This keeps him in Buffalo on paper as of right now through 2026. And the move freed up an additional $6 million in salary cap space. So again, this is a good move. I guess we've all known how good Matt Milano has been for some time now. You saw what he did last year, was an all-pro, finally getting that national recognition in a year that a lot of people have said it wasn't even his best. Which, like, okay, Matt Milano hipsters now, like, are we gatekeeping Matt Milano? Like, this is
that is exactly what's happening. And like, I don't want to say that they're right, because that makes me feel bad, but like, also they are right. Like, Matt Milano has had better seasons than what he had in 2023. So yeah,
he was still good.
He was still good. That's the best part about Matt Milano. He's like, this is sort of like, if you got like Crash Love Matt Milano as opposed to like Sing the Sorrow Matt Milano, if we're comparing him to like AFI, no one else is going to understand this reference but me. I'm sure everyone has their band where they feel that way, though, where it's like, oh, you got into this band with this album, but like their other album, like 2, 4, 5 years ago, was way better,
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
That was a really bad comparison that no one is going to understand. Anyway, go on.
No, Joe DeRosa, AFI slaps.
Joe, let's go.
Shout out,
Joe.
But yeah, so this obviously kind of set the table for what came today with Tremaine Edmunds not re-signing, which we will get into later. But again, I do believe this move, or at least this new contract, is going to have an average annual value for Milano of like $14 million or something like that. You cannot be paying 2 off-ball linebackers a combined however much that would have
Maybe
been.
you can't, Kyle.
Terry Pagula can't either, apparently.
With your poverty ass salary, but listen, these multi can certainly do that.
They didn't.
And they didn't.
And they didn't. So yes. So this does set. Should we get into the Milano discussion now? Because I feel like there is an interesting discussion to be had about Matt Milano. And we've been having it in the Cover One chat the last couple of days. I've kept my mouth shut just because, look, I'll fully admit I'm stupid, right? I'm not really smart guy.
That's why we're co-hosts. We're both very dumb at this. Yeah. So.
Look, I love Matt Milano. Anyone who has listened to this podcast or anything I've ever done / written knows that I love Matt Milano. I think Matt Milano is an incredible player. And a lot of the talk regarding or surrounding Matt Milano after this extension / restructure or whatever you want to call it, and Tremaine Edmunds presumably leaving and then actually leaving, at least on paper leaving, a lot of people are talking about the idea of moving Matt Milano to the quote unquote middle of the defense, right? I mean, how the Bills play defense, middle's kind of silly, incorrect to say, but wearing the green dot, being the play caller, if you will, or the play relayer, at least the leader of the defense, and then bringing in another heat-seeking missile opposite Matt Milano, and then just doing, going crazy on defense, if you will. Like in theory. On paper, I love the idea, right? Of Matt Milano wearing the green dot, and then you get, hypothetically, another Matt Milano, or you let Terrell Bernard, who is like athletically similar and like measurably similar to Matt Milano, right? So like the idea of having two Matt Milanos out there is fun, especially if you beef up the defensive line, especially the middle of the defensive line. Love that idea. And I don't distrust Matt Milano's ability to do that. I think that if you asked him to play the Tremaine Edmunds role, he could, as a player. I don't know how to phrase this without sounding like a dick, but
let's just go.
I don't know if I trust Matt Milano's ability to wear the green dot, if that makes sense. I don't know if I trust Matt Milano's ability as the quote unquote defensive play caller or signal caller or play relayer. Like I don't know if he can do that.
It is a lot to put on someone, right? Because you have to make sure that you are communicating exactly what needs to be out there at all times, right? And maybe we're kind of armchair psychoanalyzing a little bit. Maybe, but really, Milano is notorious for being a very soft-spoken, very closed-in type of guy.
Yeah,
and obviously he brings a lot of energy when he plays the game because you have to. It's the NFL. You need to actually be out there and ready to go. And I don't think anybody's questioning we're not talking about effort. We're not talking about energy and making plays or anything like that. We're talking about just a very specific aspect of you need to be able to be forceful and clear and very directly on you at all times, right? And maybe he can do that. I don't want to say that he can't do it because he hasn't been asked to do it. Also, in times when Tremaine Edmunds has been out, Milano wasn't given the green dot that was given to Tyrell Dotson.
Okay, interesting.
That's a something. I don't know what that is, but it's a something about this whole sort of situation. So,
and another point that's kind of an argument for and an argument against. Tremaine Edmunds, when he got here as a 19-year-old kid, he was 20 in his first season, but whatever. When he got here in 2018, also a very kind of reserved, quiet guy, right? He had to grow into being that defensive leader, that defensive play caller, signal caller, whatever. But the difference there is that Edmunds was drafted and told, you are going to be right away. You are our starting middle linebacker. We are giving you the green dot right away. We are giving you the keys to this defense. You are the guy. So then he grew into that role. Whereas Milano since he started playing significant snaps in his rookie year has always just been the supplementary guy.
Right.
Do I think, again, if they asked him, could he do it? Play-wise, yes. I don't know if at this point he would, take the step and actually be that green dot wearing dude. Again, you don't know unless you ask him to do it. But I mean, like you said, David, in times in which they could have asked him to do it, they didn't. I don't know if that's because they don't trust Milano or if they were just like, we don't want to put another thing on your plate right now. We'll just let Dodson do it. Whatever. And Dodson presumably is gone, which cool. But
I'm not concerned about that. Bernard is the size of a safety. Hey, you know who played safety in college? Matt Milano.
What?
Anyway,
who would have thunk? Yeah. So moving on from Matt Milano. Sam Martin got re-signed to a 3-year deal, punter, cap hit of $1.6 million. I have nothing to say about Sam Martin. I'm sorry.
He is perfectly fine and a good holder. That's all I care about. Moving on.
Right. Sam Martin, I'm sure you're in chat and you were waiting for us to give some analysis about your signing. I really don't care.
And I just did. So
right. Cool.
Cheers to you, Sam.
Tyler Matakevich, also don't care. Special teams special teams ace, right? Really good special teamer. And he's a depth linebacker whom I do not want on the field. Cool. And then Cam Lewis, whatever. He's got to have blackmail on the coaching staff. They like him.
They do like him.
He can play safety. He can play corner. Can't do either particularly well.
Right.
They like the story of like undrafted guy from UB who they've developed along into a non-rosterable NFL player.
Into an adequate fill-in guy if you absolutely have to play him.
Is he? I mean, they do.
Hold on. I will. Cam is then Jamarcus Ingram.
He's is that our baseline? Is that what we're doing?
That is the baseline. For me, that is the baseline. Because I remember having to watch Jamarcus Ingram when he had to get thrown in last year against Miami. And that was when I was like, okay, maybe McDermott can't make every single person into a solid enough DB.
That's true.
Cam Lewis is one of those people, though, who's like solid enough. Listen, that Vikings game where he got thrown in at safety, I understand that we all look at that and think of the stupid, ridiculous Justin Jefferson catch. But, like, he played fine during that game in a position that he never really played or started at before.
Is right. Whatever. No one else was going to. You know what? I don't know. I'm not.
We've spent too much time on Cam Lewis. Moving on.
Sal writes, no players watching, laughing.
You don't know that, Sal.
2 points. 1, Sal Capaccio, WGR 550. Thank you for watching so much.
Thank you, Sal.
2, Sam Martin. Are we calling Sam Martin a player? Are we really doing that?
By very technical terms, yes.
So we're doing here. We're doing Jamarcus Ingram and Sam Martin talk on our free agency reaction. We
sandwiched in between Cam Lewis talk.
Let's move to restructures here. Brandon Bean, please make a move. Please give us something to talk about on this podcast. I am begging you. Anything. Okay, restructures. They restructured Tim Settle, defensive tackle, to, I don't know, he took a slight pay cut. He's the 3rd defensive tackle on the depth chart. I do expect them to add, Sal writes, wrong Sal. It's Sal Marinara.
That's exactly what Sal Capaccio would say, so people wouldn't start asking him questions.
It's Sal from
You're
Rochester.
not fooling us here at the Cover One Roundup, Sal.
So Tim Settle, 3rd defensive tackle. I expect them to add to this position through either Jordan Phillips again or a draft pick or a signing. So Tim Settle will probably be the 4th defensive tackle on the roster again. Up and down year from Tim Settle on the field last year when he was, on the field. Kind of a limited role for him, but whatever. Again, takes a pay cut to stick around. Cool. Like I'm fine with Tim Settle on my roster at a reduced salary. Fine. And then Nyheim Hines kind of looked at as like a lot of people circled him as a cap casualty, perhaps because he was going to have like a they could have freed up $4 million by parting ways with him. They restructure as opposed to cut entirely, which was the preferred avenue for me because they traded for him at the trade deadline last season. Really did not give him any opportunity to get going in that offense. So now with a full year with the playbook, all that jazz, right? I like the idea of Nyheim Hines and what he can bring to this offense as, an RB2 or an RB3 plus their returner. So really cool. They free up $1.3 million with this restructure. So David, anything huge to add about Tim Settle or Nyheim Hines?
I would like to see more of Nyheim Hines on the offense. I do think it is at least it's comforting to me just on like a game by game basis watching them, knowing that I don't have to like hold my breath every time the ball is punted to the Bills and Isaiah McKenzie is back there, So there's that. It's a slight decrease in blood pressure just during the game, so that's nice. I appreciate that. So
20 minutes in, we're already into the main topic. This is a new record for this show. This is something that we have never done before. This is what this is.
And I thought I was taking up too much time with this poem at the start. I thought we were gonna have.
No, we're cooking. We are cooking. It's like that meme where it's like, damn,
I still got more of it. I didn't hit some parts of it.
We'll see.
We might have to break it out.
Right. Let's get through the rest of the actual analysis, and then if we're at like 40 minutes, then yes, we're just reading poetry. You guys can submit your poetry in the chat. Bill's haikus is how we're filling the last 20 minutes here. So this is the dude who is in the thumbnail. This is the name that everyone is excited to hear about, excited to talk about, and it's a confusing name because there are two of them. Everyone was very confused as to which Connor McGovern the Buffalo Bills signed this morning, or not this morning, this afternoon. Again, 12 o'clock is the first time that they ever spoke. It was the Dallas one, the Buffalo Bills signing Dallas Connor McGovern to a 3-year, $23 million contract. Again, we'll see how it's structured. We'll see how it ultimately shakes out. But on paper, that's like a bit north of $7.5 million a year, which is a starting guard contract, right? That's starting guard money, despite what PFF would suggest that, he's I think in their free agent, I guess, manifesto, if you will, they said like he's best as a depth guard. And nope. I think, play wise, tape wise, and money wise, he is a starting guard. And that's what he's going to be for the Buffalo Bills. Started 16 games for the Cowboys last season, 909 snaps at left guard, 1,005 snaps in total. Saw a bit of time at center last year. And then in the past has played right guard for the Cowboys. In addition, they did some crazy stuff with Connor McGovern in Dallas. Used him as a blocking tight end, which isn't too crazy. Used him as a fullback. Brought him in to be a lead blocker for Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Fun stuff that they did, that they got up to with Connor McGovern in Dallas. But again, that's when he was a depth dude who was just kind of plugged in wherever, and they're paying him like a starter. So
that was when he was a Bobby Hart type of player.
Right. I do not expect them to be like, okay, Connor McGovern, you are our either starting right or left guard, but we're going to take you out, move you back, put Mike Butker for a little bit, and you're going to block for James Cook or Jamal Williams. I don't expect that to happen, but it's fun, right? They used him in fun ways. So again, David, any thoughts on Connor McGovern before we get into like what this could mean for the line?
I think that he's a very solid player, and the Bills didn't pay a ridiculous amount to get him. Right before free agency started, Chris Lindstrom, $105 million, which was like, oh boy. We all thought that guards were going to get paid during this offseason. And then when that started, it was like, who is giving out money today? Who's going to be handing out the money today? And it turns out the Broncos were, because the Broncos signed, who did they sign at guard?
Ben Powers? Recall? Was it Ben Powers?
Ben Powers, that's right. So they signed Ben Powers to a big contract. Then they signed Mike McGlinchey to like an $87.5 million deal. What has Mike McGlinchey done for $87.5 million?
Had a name
besides wear a cool face mask, like it's just very weird. So in comparison, at least, getting Connor McGovern, really what you want is just like something that's just going to help solidify things, right? Because the Bills thought they were getting a legitimately solidifying piece in Roger Saffold last year, right? You put him in at left guard. He's a Cromer guy. You can make it work. Like, maybe he's an average pass blocker, but like he's still got something as a run blocker. Turns out he had nothing in either area, so he just kind of sucked. Now you have Ryan Bates. Now, they haven't necessarily announced because obviously nothing's official yet, of course. We're only 7.5 hours into the legal tampering period. Who knows what kind of things have been discussed yet? So that being said, I think the plan would be to move Bates back to left guard, where I think he feels more comfortable, putting Connor McGovern at right guard. So now, I mean, to me, I feel at least decent about like left tackle to right guard. It doesn't need to be amazing, but you just what you don't want is a turnstile. You don't want constant in your face pressure that they were constantly getting from Roger Saffold last year. Now the other part of this, right, is I said left tackle to right guard because I'm still not sure if Spencer Brown is the guy, and I'm not sure the Bills do either. That being said, nothing's been done about right tackle yet. Right. So maybe they do feel, of course, it's day one. We don't want,
again, 7.5 hours deep.
And I don't. It would really be going against what this regime has done since Brandy Bean has got. Brown's our guy, and we're not going to do anything else to try and solidify that position. Like that's not how they go about things, generally speaking, right? So I imagine that they'll get some sort of tackle to go there. But if Andre Dillard is getting like $29 million from Tennessee to play for them, I'll wait for someone else's value to depreciate before committing to someone on day one. That was weird, man. I don't really get that. So I think the Connor McGovern signing is perfectly whelming. It is not overwhelming. It is not underwhelming. I am perfectly whelmed by Connor McGovern.
Right. Like you said, Ben Powers today with Denver getting $13 million per season. Again, they were never going to be in that Ben Powers upper tier guard market. But after seeing $13 million a year for Ben Powers, I mean, like Connor McGovern isn't Ben Powers, but you're paying $7.5 million for him, right? That's fine, right? How that shakes out. Mm-hmm. Again, McGovern graded out really well in pass protection, so we'll see.
Which I'm okay with.
That's pass protector than he is run blocker. Which I mean, you can make the argument, right? Like they were already good in pass. Like they were a better pass blocking team than they were run blocking team, and have historically been that. So why not get run blockers? And it's like, well, they have Josh Allen. Like they're going to be a passing team for the next.
You want to protect Josh Allen more than you want to protect James Cook.
Build a running game.
Sorry, James Cook. I don't.
And then RJ brings up his 9.77 RAS. So again, the Bills like their athletic offensive linemen. And again, Connor McGovern, 25 years old, get him at a reasonable deal. All is well. All is fine. So there was something else that I wanted to bring up. Oh, just regarding how the line is going to shake out, the interior of the line. Again, given that McGovern he played 909 snaps at left guard last year, and then has played center and right guard. I don't know how it's going to shake out with Bates and McGovern, right? They're going to, at least as of right now, unless they draft a guy who comes in and is a world beater in camp, it's going to be Bates and McGovern probably starting week 1 next year, regardless of who's on which side. But one of the things I like about this signing is, again, the positional versatility, right? Has played all 3 interior line spots, as has Ryan Bates. Bates has played all 5 line spots, but again, Bates has been their backup center in addition to their starting guard or whatever. So I like the idea now that, right, like they can pick and choose, right? You have 2 guard / centers, if you will, right? Like you have 2, and Mitch Morse with the concussion history, you don't really know. So now you have options, at center, or, should he go down, you have options, whether it be McGovern or Bates. And again, maybe I don't know. I don't know how they feel Mitch Morse is going to be long term. I don't know if they're factoring Mitch Morse into their long term plan. So maybe could this be a long term center? I don't know. Probably not, but maybe this is a dude who down the road they look at center. They give him a shot at center. So I don't know. But as of right now, the Bills just added a starting guard, which is something that they needed. And that is all they've done so far in terms of additions. Again, the chat has not suggested that they have added anyone else. So I'm going to assume that they have yet to add anybody else. All really cool stuff. Thank you, Brandon. Very much appreciate. He's going to do us a solid and wait until like 8:02 when we've been off the air for 3 minutes.
That's right.
So I very much appreciate that. So let's just get into the losses here. The big one, of course, is Case Keenum signing in Houston.
Yes.
Gonna go start there, presumably. I don't know.
The hometown hero returns.
Right. Again, this is his third stint with the Texans. Went to Houston. He was a Cougar, of course. Yeah. Whatever. I don't care. Like Greg put in the Cover One Twitter chat earlier. He was like, because people were talking about who could potentially be the Bills backup now. And it's like, who cares? If Josh Allen's not on the field, something's gone terribly wrong, and I probably don't want to watch anyway. So it's like, yeah, I don't really care.
There's a great quote by longtime NFL offensive assistant Tom Moore when he was still with the Colts. And I believe somebody asked him, it may have been Pat McAfee, or maybe Pat McAfee was just saying it because Pat McAfee says everything. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked him, you got this guy, Curtis Painter, he doesn't really get any reps in practice. Why don't we get Painter some reps in practice, in case Peyton goes down or something? And Tom Moore looked at him and said, guy, if Peyton goes down, then we're fucked. And we don't practice fucked.
Precisely. That's exactly
it. If Josh Allen goes down, nothing good is coming out of that. You can't sit there and be like, oh, well, they should have gotten someone else. They should have seen this coming. It's like the man played through a UCL injury last year. Yeah. The only thing that's going to keep Josh Allen off the field is if he legitimately can't walk, if he has polio or something, it needs to be something drastic to keep Josh Allen off the field.
Yeah, I don't care which friend of Josh Allen they bring in to back him up and sit next to him in the quarterback room and go golfing with him. I don't care. They'll bring someone in. Cool. Okay. Obviously, the actual big loss. Tremaine Edmonds signing. He gets his big deal. He wanted a big contract. He gets his big contract with the Chicago Bears. 4 years, $72 million, $18 million per, $50 million guaranteed. This is about, I guess, what has been speculated for Tremaine here for quite some time. A lot of people thought he was going to get paid, just given the resume and the age and everything that he's accomplished in his last 5 years in the NFL, which, to a lot of people has been underwhelming. But I think most people would agree that Tremaine Edmonds was a key cog in this Buffalo defense, kept it moving at a lot of times this season, especially because you really noticed him when he missed a game or two. You really noticed that Tremaine Edmonds wasn't on the field. And then just in the past, he's, hasn't always been consistent, right? Hasn't always been flashy, but this last season, he really did put it all together, as a lot of people do in their career or in their contract years, obviously. But again, cash is in with Chicago, a team in need of talent and with a lot of cap space. It made a lot of sense, right? Uber Hansen's been kind of talking about this for a while. The whole Tremaine Edmonds to Chicago thing making sense. And it did. And obviously $18 million per, with $50 million guaranteed. So now that we see the contract, now that it's been agreed to, this is a contract that, again, I think a lot of people thought he'd get. But I'm glad that it wasn't the Bills to pay it. I'm glad that the Bills did not give him this contract, because if it came out earlier that he signed this exact deal with the Bills, I would have been like, I'm happy he's back, but boy, is that steep. And boy, does that kind of complicate a lot of things moving forward. So he's going to be difficult to replace, but we'll see how they do it. So David, what's your thoughts on this deal?
The second gift of darkness is comforting illusion, the ease of gentle dreams and night's embrace, the beauty that imagination brings to what would repel in day's harsh light. But the greatest of the day's comforts is the illusion that the dark is temporary, that every night brings a new day, because it is the day that is temporary. Day is the illusion. I'm very upset, Kyle.
That's beautifully said, though. Beautifully put.
Look. So did I? There was a certain point where shut up. So there's a certain point where you kind of realize the Bills were probably going to get priced out of Tremaine Edmonds, right? When Roquan Smith signed for 5 years, $20 million a year, you kind of realize like, oh, that might be the final nail in that. And you think about just like where the Bills are financially speaking. You kind of feel like, it was unless it was going to be a lot cheaper than people thought. Like there was a couple of days ago a report that like he was going to sign for like $15 million a year, and I was like, that's not happening. Like I refuse to believe that Tremaine Edmonds is going to get $15 million a season from an NFL team, that he's going to accept $15 million a season from an NFL team. Just could not believe that. And they were wrong, because he got $18 million from the Bears. $74 million total, $50 million guaranteed. That is crazy money. And well-earned money, in my opinion. I think that, it's tough, and you can't really some like Tremaine Edmonds, like with a 1-to-1 type of replacement. You can find different guys to kind of supplement what he gave you, whether that's, shifting around guys like Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard, bringing in somebody like Levante David, who's super experienced and brings a ton of leadership, but you're never truly going to replace Tremaine Edmonds and his impact 1-to-1 with one person. I think that, Bills fans who have been kind of, upset with Tremaine Edmonds for basically his entire career, and there's probably some people who are very happy to see him go and, get paid $18 million a year, are probably thinking like, oh, good, good riddance, good for him. He gets his money, but we don't have to deal with him anymore. Bears fans are going to realize how overpaid he is. And I think he's going to ball out in Chicago. I think he's going to be fantastic in Chicago. And especially for Eberflus, who's, came up coaching linebackers. So that's how he got his name. That's how he became the guy for the Colts and their defensive coordinator. He's part of the reason why he became really the candidate coach. And they didn't really have any linebackers other than some rookie from Iowa named Jack Sanborn, who, was like a day 3 pick. And people were looking at him like, oh, this is somebody who could probably start for them next year. And now they signed Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards.
Yep.
And so Jack Sanborn, thanks for your help. Thanks for the service. But we're moving on to brighter and greener and more athletic pastures.
Right. Yeah. Bigger pastures.
It's very tough. It's going to be very tough to replace him. You can't really replace him 1-to-1. It'll be very interesting to see how McDermott and the staff adjusts to that. If they adjust to that, we kind of poke fun at McDermott and the staff for being too stubborn in how they scheme things and how they put together that defense. I would assume that this group is smart enough to understand that you can't play the exact same defense that you've played with Tremaine Edmonds without Tremaine Edmonds. So I assume there's going to be changes and shifts in scheme, but we'll see what that actually is, though.
This kind of serves as like a pseudo transition here into our next segment, which is what we want them to do moving forward.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things that we want them to do moving forward. But look, I guess the idea, right? I think you and I both thought for a long time, right? If you go back and listen to us on these podcasts, we always talked about the idea of the Bills losing Tremaine Edmunds and having to replace Tremaine Edmunds as like a hypothetical, a possibility. But I think we both thought ultimately they were going to figure out a way to get Tremaine Edmunds done. They were going to figure out a way to re-sign him. And then, as things kind of, progressed and we got closer to today, it was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. Then obviously now we're living in the reality. And I mean, he could wake up tomorrow with a change of heart, but I would not wake up with a change of heart when I have $50 million.
And that is the worst part. That's the worst part of this whole like legally tampering period, right? Is like there's that like less than a 1% chance that like, oh, Tremaine Edmunds it's gonna come back to Buffalo and it's gonna be the same deal or cheaper or whatever. Like the only time I can remember somebody reneging on a deal was when Anthony Barr signed with the Jets and then realized that he was gonna have to go play for the New York Jets and was like, no, I'm not doing this, and went right back to Minnesota.
Yeah. And
but that doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen very often. In fact, it was a pretty big deal that he did that.
Right. It's been happening with increasing frequency the last couple of years. But again, $50 million guaranteed from Chicago, who just got a bag for the first overall pick. Right? Like they're a team that is Edmunds is still young. He is a team that can still grow with a growing team. Yeah. And he got $50 million guaranteed to do it, $18 million a year. I don't think he's waking up tomorrow and thinking he made a bad decision. But so let's assume we are living in the reality in which Tremaine Edmunds is a Chicago Bear. Because that's where we're living. Is linebacker firmly in play at the end of the first round?
No, but not.
You don't think Jack Campbell's in play?
At the end of the first round? I don't know if Jack Campbell's an end of the first round type of guy. Maybe he is. I haven't necessarily been keeping up with mock drafts. Obviously, he had a great combine, but it's not because linebacker isn't a need. Obviously, it's a need right now, but it's just whether or not, like, do you want to take a linebacker at the end of the first round? Is that the talent? I don't think that's the talent. I
just bring the ideas.
I'd rather take offensive line, like a young guard, instead of constantly investing in veterans. I'd like to actually train up a young guard or convert a tackle to guard, because that's Aaron Cromer's thing. It's like his little finish, I guess, if you want to call it. But I don't see that. I don't see linebacker as like the thing that they're going to take at the end of the first round.
I don't necessarily think that either, but I will just say Jack Campbell's interesting, right? 6'5",
I agree.
Athlete, Iowa guy. McDermott's been outspoken about his love for Iowa and that program before. It makes sense. It's something that makes sense on paper. Don't know if it'll actually happen, but it makes sense.
Right.
So let's transition now into what we want to happen. John writes, "This is the worst offseason in 20 years. Okay, I want everyone to please, and us included, let's take a deep breath. We are 7 hours and 44 minutes into the legal tampering period. I was on the phone with my friend earlier. I had to talk him off a ledge as he sat in a parking lot, and he was just freaking out. And he's like, all these teams are passing us by, and the Bills haven't done anything, and you have Denver making moves, you have all these other teams making moves, and the Bills aren't doing anything, and Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets, and Miami just got Jalen Ramsey, and all these teams are getting better, and the Bills aren't, and the Bills are worse, and everyone's getting hurt and leaving."
You know what? Cincinnati lost both of their starting safeties. Both of them.
I just told him. I was like, dude, we're 3 hours into the offseason. We're 3 hours into the offseason. It took them 3 days to agree to terms with Von Miller. 3 days last year for Von Miller. Okay? Like, these things take time. And we've been joking, like, that teams were talking before 12 o'clock because they probably were, but these things take time. Let's
do.
give things time to progress. Let's not, if a week from now the Bills haven't done anything of note, if they didn't have a great draft and the roster looks largely like it does today with a not great draft class, then that's when I'll start being concerned. I'm not overly concerned, not even 8 hours into the formal off season. We'll see.
On the subject of time, as days are defined by the nights that divide them, as stars are divided by the infinite black through which they wheel, the dark embraces the light and brings it forth from the center of its own self. With each victory of the light, it is the dark that wins.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that reading. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. What else do we want them to do this offseason? Obviously, I want them to add a linebacker, whether it be a Levante David or, just a depth. Again, I kind of expressed my concerns about Milano earlier and his ability to wear the green dot. So, if I had to have a say, I want them to sign like a Levante David, just a Band-Aid 2-3 year guy, who can come in, effectively lead the defense, serve as the signal caller, whatever, for a year or two. And then you draft a guy probably on day or in round 3 or on day 3, a guy who you have a lot of faith in, a guy who you trust yourself to be able to develop along, and you develop him along for a little bit, because again, Terrell Bernard, they drafted him in the 3rd round last year, presumably or primarily has played special teams. I don't know if he is ever going to fill that Edmonds role. And again, like you said, David, that's a hard dude to just replicate, but I don't know if I ever see Bernard doing anything similar to that. So I would like them to get a Band-Aid and then draft a dude and develop him along. David, how do you want them to attack linebacker?
I would... My personal preference in terms of how you go about replacing Edmonds would be to dip into free agency of Levante. And Levante David's been playing for a long time, but he's still really good. He's kind of one of those guys who is consistently flown just under the radar, where people know how good he is, but we're all caught up on someone else at the time. If Levante David comes, I will feel much better linebacker. Not only just because he's a super talented and really, really good player with a ton of experience, but also because he is a great, great leader. I think that's something that is going to be missed from Tremaine Edmonds, is that level of leadership. You bring in somebody like Levante David, I feel a lot better about that whole situation. But, I would also say that Levante David is just a for now type of fix, right? You sign him to a 1, maybe 2 year deal, and that should not prevent you from drafting someone else either this year or maybe even next year if you don't really like anybody this year, right? You need to think of a long-term solution to this, and more realistically, you need a more cost-controlled solution to this, because you are going to be paying Matt Milano through 2026 now, right? That's where the extension ends. And if that's the case, then you need somebody that can kind of just go with that for as long as that's going to go. And I think you have to kind of dip into the rookies. Maybe that is Jack Campbell, and maybe you have to take him a little bit earlier than you would like to normally. Maybe that's somebody else. I don't know. Because we didn't really think someone like Terrell Bernard was going to be on their radar, and he ends up being a 3rd round pick for them. So I think that you need to have somebody. It's what this team wants to do anyway, right? They want to have no holes going into the draft so that they can take the players that they actually want, so that they don't feel any sort of pressure to grab somebody that's a need. They want to take whoever they want. And that means that they're going to have to get a veteran linebacker, whoever that is. Preferably that's Levante David, because I love Levante David and he'd be a great player for the Bills. But I don't know if that's necessarily who they want. I don't know if that's necessarily where they'll end up going. Maybe they go more with like a Bobby Wagner type. Who knows? And like, I wouldn't love Bobby Wagner. I don't think the wheels have completely fallen off of Bobby Wagner either. So we'll see. But it's tough. It's a tough solution.
We're on the
so
same
I would
page,
say,
though.
yeah. I mean, you need a veteran option that you feel comfortable enough with to start the season and dip into this rookie pool somewhere along the line. And somebody that you feel comfortable enough who can, like we talked about earlier, who's going to call this defense, who's going to, get the guys lined up in the right position to make the calls, to be aggressive and be loud and out there being a commanding voice on the field, because that's what you need from that position. So
let's talk about safety here, because there has been really no news about Jordan Poyer besides a couple,
which is a little surprising.
Right, couple of teams signing safeties. Jordan Poyer not one of them thus far. So we'll see. If
Jesse Bates got paid by the Falcons $60 million. $60 million. That's insane.
Von Bell
He's a good
goes
player,
somewhere.
though.
Yeah.
Von Bell went to the Panthers. I think that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but he got a good amount of money from them. I'm a little surprised that we haven't heard anything about Jordan Poyer yet. I thought, maybe he would go to Chicago because they could use somebody to pair with their young gun, Jaquan Brisker. I thought, Miami could be in play, and I assumed that if Miami was in play, that they would just announce that right off the gun, right? Or just to sort of like stick it to the Bills almost. Yeah. But maybe that's my own pettiness talking. I don't know, but it just sort of it's very interesting. And maybe Poyer was on their radar, and then they had to take Jalen Ramsey and take on that money, and maybe now they're a little less
rethinking
willing
stuff.
to and fair. It's hard to it must be tough having to choose between your trading a third round pick and a backup tight end for an all pro corner versus paying your in-division rival God. Brutal timing. Between paying that and getting your in-division rivals all pro safety from them. So yeah, it's it is what it is. But I'm not really sure where Poyer ends up. The rumor has been Miami because
because that's what he's been tweeting.
Right.
And liking tweets about, but
right. So I would assume that there's mutual interest there, but you would think that something would be done there. And maybe this is just sort of the case of Rosenhaus being your agent, right? It's just like he's going to keep trying to pressure to giving you more money and is willing to wait out a little bit more. And, if that's the case, I would trust Drew Rosenhaus because he's done this for a very long time and gotten a lot of people, including himself, a lot of money. So, if my advice, not that you asked for it, Jordan Poyer, obvious fan of the show, but trust in your agent because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, safety obviously is a need, but again, I didn't expect the Bills to be in this first, shopping in this first tier of free agents. And maybe, the longer the Poyer market, goes on, maybe something happens. I don't know though.
Somehow I doubt it.
I don't. Yeah, I doubt it, sadly. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think the Bills are going to at some point add a safety, but it's gonna be just a name, right? Like the Bills will probably be able to coach him up, which will be fine because that's what we're all expecting, right? Let's say now that's what we're all expecting. So when they do it, we can't be upset. We can't be.
Well, and that's how Tremaine Edmonds. Oh my God, I'm still on Tremaine Edmonds. That's how Jordan Poyer came onto this roster, right? It's like him and Micah Hyde were just kind of like whatever type of players. Like Micah Hyde was liked by Green Bay, but he never had like a defined position in Green Bay. They just sort of used him as this like, we're going to move you into nickel and outside corner and safety and strong safety, and we'll just sort of move you around. They never thought like, yeah, let's just make him the best deep safety in the NFL. And then McDermott was like, yeah, no, we'll do that. We'll do that. And we'll do it for like $30 million. That's not a big deal. And then they took Jordan Poyer, who like was drafted as a corner. Actually, no, he was undrafted as a corner. Wait, was he drafted? Is he a seventh round pick or undrafted?
Late day 3 pick.
Okay. So drafted to be a corner, ends up converting to safety, goes to the Browns, has like a decent enough season.
Punctures a lung.
Right. goes to Buffalo, and they gave him like a pretty decent contract at the time. And lo and behold, this becomes one of the best safety tandems in the last 5 years, if not the best safety tandem in the last 5 years. I mean, what they did was incredible. So obviously you don't want to lose Jordan Poyer because he's that guy. He's a great player. He's an all-pro for obviously fought through a lot just in this past season to be on the field. I mean, he was basically duct taped and glued together by the end of the season. Mm-hmm. But you know, if there is one thing, again, I feel like a broken record saying it, but I'll keep saying it. I am always comfortable with McDermott and this defense with whoever they kind of put out at defensive back for the most part. You know, as long as we're not talking about Jamarcus Ingram and Jaquan Johnson, you know, but those are like truly bottom of the barrel type of guys. Those are last resort scenario type of guys, which is not what they want, obviously. So this free agent class of safeties, you have guys like Marcus Epps, who got a reasonable deal from the Raiders, along with the other two Bengals safeties who we talked about. Now with the Falcons and Panthers. You know, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is still out there. He doesn't necessarily seem like a McDermott guy. Am I wrong?
No.
It would be so much fun.
We need juice bringers.
But yeah, I don't know if that, and I imagine Gardner-Johnson wants a lot of money.
Absolutely. But if they're going to splurge somewhere.
I agree. I would love to have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on this team, but you know, if Jesse Bates is getting $60 million from the Falcons, I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is looking at that saying, yeah, something like that will do. And I don't think the Bills are paying anything close to that.
Right. Sadly. He'd be fun though.
There's someone like John Johnson who's out there, right?
Prove it deal.
Is still young. He's like 27 years old, but he seems to be more interested in going to the Chargers to go to Brandon Staley, who he worked with when he was in LA with the Rams. I don't know if that's necessarily an option. If they signed John Johnson, that would be awesome because I think he is a good player who just kind of got misused by a really bad defensive coaching staff in Cleveland. So there's options, and the other part of this is the draft class, which like we've talked about doesn't have a super standout type of guy. Where you're like, that needs to be the guy. They need to like trade up to get this guy. But there is a lot of depth at safety. And I think that's a very good thing. So again, I think they'll go with some sort of veteran option and then draft someone. And I think they'll draft someone on day 2. I feel pretty confident in saying that they would draft someone on day 2 for safety because this is, you know, a position where it's not just about Jordan Poyer. It's about Micah Hyde coming off of neck fusion surgery. It's about Damar Hamlin's whole situation and how that all ends up playing out to where, you know, your most comfortable options are like Dean Marlowe and converting Christian Benford to safety. Like hope is not a solution. Hope is not a plan. Right. So I would imagine at some point we'll see a veteran signed, and I imagine a day 2 pick that they end up developing. So
yeah. Co-sign all of those feelings about safety.
Thank you.
Let's move to the offensive side of the ball. because a lot of people wanted the Bills to add some offensive playmakers, some weapons in free agency. Thus far, have not, but there's been at least one link, I should say. NFL Network reported earlier that the Bills and running back Jamal Williams, Detroit most recently, previously played in Green Bay, mutual interest between the Bills and Jamal Williams. I am of two minds regarding Jamal Williams because Jamal Williams had a good year last year, and I do expect that whichever team ultimately signs Jamal Williams is going to have to give him somewhat of a deal, right? Some money. And I don't know if I want the Bills to be that team. I don't know if I want the Bills investing significant money into running back. I mean, it might not be significant, but just in general, like I really like James Cook, and you get a guy like Jamal Williams, you're taking away some snaps and development from James Cook, because I mean, Jamal Williams isn't a slouch. Jamal Williams is a guy who, more of a 1B than a 2. So we will see what ultimately happens with Jamal Williams. But like my other mind, or, I said I was of two minds, my other mind, if you will, would be I am never against bringing in a juice bringer. I just brought it up with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. If a guy, regardless of the position, is going to bring juice to my team and my locker room, I would like that guy on my team and in my locker room. Jamal Williams, as I tweeted earlier, is one of the biggest juice bringers, not only in football, but in the world. If you have ever listened to this guy talk, to this guy give an interview, a locker room speech, whatever, this guy, like, he's not like the rah-rah, fire guys up. He's not Kyle Williams, but like he is just such a magnetic, charismatic personality who fires up everybody around him. And like, I would love to have that on the Bills. I'm not averse to having that on the Bills. And again, you bring up the idea, or people bring up the idea of like, or I guess the fact that, oh yeah, he had a bunch of touchdowns last year, but the vast majority of them were from the 1 yard line. And it's like, well, yeah, one, that's the type of player he is in general. Two, I mean, it's not like the Bills don't have weapons to move them down the field. And I think we all expect that they will add more weapons, probably a wide receiver. But like, look, the Bills the last couple of years haven't had issues moving the ball down the field. What's been the issue? The play calling and execution once they get into the red zone. They bring in a bruiser like Jamal Williams who makes his money just from bringing it in once the teams are down near the goal line. Cool, right? Like Jamal Williams, I guess if they are going to add a running back, Jamal Williams is the type of dude that they, I guess, on paper need. So look, if it comes out tomorrow that the Bills are, in 20 minutes that the Bills are signing Jamal Williams, I'm cool with it, right? Like it'll depend on the money, but in theory, I like a guy like Jamal Williams on my team.
Yeah, I don't want to say he is the ideal candidate for an interview with the Cover One Roundup, but also if he does come on, I am hitting those DMs so quickly and asking him to just go full, like, wear whatever you want, like whatever weird anime like thing. Actually, you know what? I would have him rank the top 5 anime that he loves.
I don't know if we would talk about football. I don't think we would.
I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. I would love to just talk about anime and life and whatever with Jamal Williams. If he wants to talk about football, sure, but like,
don't need to.
That's right.
This has never been a football podcast.
Yeah, I would like Jamal Williams. I think he would be a really good complement to James Cook. I feel pretty confident about James Cook moving into year 2. I think that regardless, you just need like a bruiser to go with James Cook, right? Because James Cook is going to get you those chunk plays, and he's going to get you the receiving yards, and maybe Nyheim Hines contributes there as well. A little bit. But what you need is somebody who, when you need 1, 2, 3 yards, that you could just get that and feel comfortable doing that right up the gut or whatever. And he was okay in certain circumstances doing that because he had more power than you would suspect for someone who's 5'7". But you still need someone, whether that's a Jamal Williams or, as Roy Collins points out, Deontay Foreman might be a less expensive option. yeah, I think either one of those guys is really a solid potential option there. But Jamal Williams also just brings that juice and that entertainment and that leadership. Yeah, he's a personality, and Bills fans would attach themselves to him from like minute one of him signing.
Oh yeah, I don't know if there has ever been. If he does sign, there will never have been a more cover one Roundup Bill. If you will.
100%.
He is
100%.
he's the cover one Roundup personified.
Right.
Let's talk about wide receivers here. I do not think a wide receiver has signed yet. I read that earlier, and I still believe it to be true because I think people are scared of setting the market, a la Christian Kirk last year, and just how that kind of messed everything up. So people are hesitant, or teams are hesitant this year to be the first to sign a player and set that market. Right? They want to let other people either make the mistake or set the market. So. No one has signed yet, but there has been some interesting news coming out of Denver. They are apparently, they're spending money on their offensive line and are apparently open to the idea of moving one of Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, or KJ Hamler. I have varying levels of interest in all three of these players. Not so much KJ Hamler, not a little bit Cortland Sutton, a whole lot of interest in Jerry Jeudy. A lot of people, I guess, have been underwhelmed with Jerry Jeudy's professional career. He's been injured for some of it. Really, I guess you could say has underwhelmed or hasn't lived up to draft stock. But when you remember what his draft stock was, and that was quote unquote best receiver in the 2020 class, which will go down as one of the better wide receiver classes of all time. No, he's not the best receiver out of that class, but he is still good, right? And like the thing about Jerry Jeudy, what does Josh Allen love to say? GOCTB, get open, catch the ball. Jerry Jeudy can do that. Jerry Jeudy, good route runner, good separator. The issue with him has been holding on to the ball, hands, which, maybe get a new coach. I don't know. But like he can separate, and that's what the Bills need. That's what Josh Allen needs. I am over the moon with the idea of trading a day 2 draft pick for Jerry Jeudy, getting him in this offense. And again, you talked about earlier, David, they love being able to go into drafts with no holes, or at least holes that aren't glaring, right? They like to go into the draft comfortable with their roster. Like if the season started tomorrow, they'd be comfortable with it. And now they just get to add the best player available at every draft pick, which you add a middle linebacker, which we think they're going to do, a depth or like a borderline playable safety who you can coach up, and Jerry Jeudy. You are seriously going into the draft wide open. You can take whoever falls to you at 27 or 28. I don't know how the NFL is ultimately going to rule where that pick technically is, but whichever number it is, if you have, again, a good linebacker, a safety, and Jerry Jeudy, you can take whoever. You are under no pressure to take any specific position. So that is why I am over the moon of the idea of Jerry Jeudy coming to Buffalo. And again, I would trade a second or a third round pick for Jerry Jeudy right now.
Yeah, I'm very interested in Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if that's maybe a potential spot for maybe an Ed Oliver type of trade. And maybe the Ed Oliver an Ed Oliver type of trade also frees up $10 million. Do we know what Jerry Jeudy's cap hit would be?
Probably going to be around there because he was around that pick just a year after Oliver.
Right. Yeah. So let's just very quickly consult with our producers who are doing a fantastic job of keeping up with all this. So his cap hit would be about $4.8 million this year. Interesting.
Yes, please. Bills Mafia man writes, let's not forget about Khalil Shakir. I could never forget about Khalil Shakir. No, my Jerry Jeudy wanting more so comes out of a Gabriel Davis hesitancy. I still am not. And like you can be hesitant about Jerry Jeudy as well. That's perfectly fine, perfectly fair. But like I am more confident in Jerry Jeudy than I am in Gabriel Davis at this point.
For sure.
RJ writes, Ed Oliver is basically Marcel Darius. He plays when he feels like it. Darcel Marius.
Darcel Marius?
My issue, this is another good point, trade Oliver after Thanksgiving. Yeah, wait until Thanksgiving. Get the Thanksgiving performance out of him and then let it happen.
There you go.
Look, I have heard this argument a lot regarding Ed Oliver, right? I think we, or Cover One, maybe started the discourse on the salary cap spectacular, the idea of trading Ed Oliver. And it's been talked about. I don't want to take, I don't think Cover One should take credit for it, but it's been something that a lot of people have been talking about, the idea of trading Ed Oliver. And it's not a stupid idea. I think people are making the argument for stupid reasons, if that makes sense. If you are making the argument out of if you're coming at it and framing it in this context, that context being, look, Ed Oliver is good. He flashes at times, and he can be a game wrecker at times, but he's too inconsistent. And given how the defensive tackle market is shaking out, especially the last couple of days, and how the Bills' salary cap situation is shaping up, paying Ed Oliver on a long-term deal is not something that the Bills should do, right? They probably should not do it. So from an asset management perspective, yes, it would be wise to trade Ed Oliver, free up the salary cap now, and then get a draft pick and then draft and develop another defensive tackle. That makes sense. If you are framing the argument in the context of Ed Oliver is bad and unimpactful, it's like, well, you're probably not getting a better defensive tackle than Ed Oliver at this point, right? If your idea is I'm trading Ed Oliver to upgrade at defensive tackle, I don't know if you're doing that this year by trading Ed Oliver. So I don't know. Again, if you're doing it for asset management, cool. If you're doing it because you don't think Ed Oliver is a good player, not cool, bad.
Yeah. We are obviously big Ed Oliver supporters. We have been for a while, but is he worth the $10 million a year? Is he worth the investment? Because Javon Hargrave at 30 years old just got a 4-year, $80 million contract. And Ed Oliver's going to want something close to that, if not exactly that. And I'm not comfortable paying Ed Oliver that kind of money.
No, they're not going to.
And they're not going. The Bills definitely aren't going to do that. So I don't really know what the feeling is there. I don't know why. Again, like you said, it's not so much that the decision to trade Ed Oliver is a bad one. It's people's reasoning is really ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they keep Ed Oliver, that's fine for this year. But then you're kind of in this Tremaine Edmonds situation where it's
exactly as less right. You're in the Edmonds boat.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just letting this guy who you spent a top 10 pick on just walk away, acknowledging that he's a good player, but just you can't pay him. And I don't know what you can possibly do to justify that.
So yeah, I don't know if that's something that they do, but I would not be shocked to hear that the Bills traded Ed Oliver, and I would be very intrigued to see what the return would ultimately be.
Right.
Let's talk about Mecole Hardman. Again, wide receivers. He's a free agent. Has not, no free agent wide receivers have signed. Don't know what his market is. Don't know what the market is on any free agent wide receiver, but just in general, the idea of a dude like Mecole Hardman, right? You can do some fun things with him. Speedster would bring some much needed speed to this offense. How do you feel about Mecole Hardman?
I very lukewarm about Mecole Hardman. I don't think this really moves the needle in any sort of direction one way or another. You already have Nyheim Hines to return kicks and punts. At best, Mecole Hardman is what? Maybe wide receiver 3? Maybe wide receiver 4?
Yeah.
Maybe he's cheap, and that's fine. I'm okay with a solid, cheap wide receiver, but this is not the thing where I'm like, they really need to get themselves McCole Hardman because I don't know, just because he's fast and because he had a solid season in his contract year with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I'm okay with just sort of sitting there. If he goes to another team, fine. If he goes to the Bills, whatever. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, McCole Hardman's exactly what they needed in this wide receiver room.
No, I'd rather Jerry Jeudy.
No.
Dov Kleiman, who's not a real person, but he breaks NFL stuff occasionally, reporting that he just parroted Ian Rappaport's report. Okay. That the Texans are again open to trading Brandon Cooks. What else is new? The sky is blue. Geez. Brandon Cooks,
has Brandon Cooks ever been a free agent?
That's a great question. Or does he just keep getting traded? Because he's been on like fucking. I don't want to swear. He's been on like half of the NFL teams at this point.
He was drafted by the Saints in 2014, and then he got traded to the Patriots in 2017. Then he got traded in 2020, and then the Texans traded for him for a second round pick. So yeah, he's never been a free agent. He's been in the league for he's never been a free agent in almost 10 years in the NFL.
I would do you know what? No. Give me Jerry Jeudy. Give me Jerry Jeudy, Levante David, and maybe Jamal Williams, but I don't know how much money you have after Jeudy.
Yeah, that's the other thing with Jamal Williams. It's like he might cost more money than I'm willing to spend on Jamal Williams.
But Jeudy and Levante David, and I'm missing next week's podcast because I went on a bender and snorted 18 lines of cocaine. Yes. Let's freestyle some true or rubbish.
The truth or rubbish.
Let's go. This is the segment where usually I prepare a number of topics for David, and he tells me whether or not they are true or rubbish. But I didn't do that, so now we're just freestyling. So if anyone in the chat has any ideas for true or rubbish, please feel free to share them. So again, let's just go. We'll do it live. True or rubbish? The Buffalo Bills will make another free agent signing tonight.
I'm gonna go with true, and I think it's true.
All after all, can't believe it. It was true.
It's true.
I think it's purely just to spite us.
100%.
Like I think Brandon Bean knows that we broadcast at 7 p.m. and he says like, all right, we need to hold off. Just we could agree to something, but like just hold off on leaking this for like an hour and a half, So there you go.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yes. Yeah. He's watching right now. Again, despite what Sal will have you believe in the chat.
That's right.
He is watching right now. And as soon as we go off, that's when he is calling Schefter or whoever and reporting like, yep, we got this done. Because that's how it works, right? The GMs are the ones calling these guys. That's okay. Right. True or rubbish? The AFC East will prove to be as competitive as it is looking right now.
Push? I don't know. What does that even mean?
Like in terms of how last year at this time everyone was like, oh, the AFC West is going to be a bloodbath, and it really wasn't. Is the AFC East going to be that, or is it actually going to be down to the final week? We don't know who's going to make it and who's not going to make it.
I mean, the Jets, assuming they get Aaron Rodgers.
Let's assume they get Aaron Rodgers.
Let's assume they get the ayahuasca man of the night.
Right, yes.
They will be better on offense because it would be really, really hard for them to be worse on offense. But also, I think people are also just sort of assuming oh, yeah, Breece Hall will be healthy and ready to go. And he'll be amazing. It's well, Breece Hall had an ACL tear in week 6. So I don't know how confident you are in him coming back immediately, ready to go by week 1. And the Jets defense was phenomenal last year. Do you get that exact same performance this year? Do you get two players playing at an all-pro? I don't know. Maybe not. You have Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley at linebacker who are both good, but neither of them are like great coverage linebackers. The defensive line, Quinton Williams is a beast. Jermaine Johnson might be better in his second year, but Carl Lawson hasn't done anything for them. Sheldon Rankins is a free agent right now. I don't know. Do you get that exact same performance from the Jets? And if you don't, how much is Rodgers making up for that? Because Aaron Rodgers, at this point of his career, plays a pretty conservative level of football, and his offensive coordinator is Nate Hackett.
And they're good friends. They're good buddies.
I don't know. They are good buddies, and that's how the NFL works.
They hang out on the weekends.
But
that's how the Bills are going to find a backup quarterback. Oh, yeah, the Bills need a backup quarterback, too. We should have brought that up.
But I don't know. I'm always annoyed by the Jets because I know they're an annoying team to play. And I think they're a well-coached team, at least with Robert Saleh defensively. But I mean, Mike LaFleur to Nate Hackett is a very clear downgrade, in my opinion. Like I still like that's a pretty bad scapegoat job by the Jets. Honestly, I mean, seriously. I mean, Nate Hackett is not some brilliant mastermind offensive coordinator type. Because if he was, he'd still be in Denver. But, Mike LaFleur was not like some uber genius either. But there was clearly more problems going on in New York offensively than the offensive coordinator not doing what he needs to do. And so I'm very unsure with the Jets. The Patriots, I mean, I don't think even they know who their quarterback's going to be at this point. And if Bill O'Brien is here to be your savior on offense, like he'll definitely help. You'll look more like an actual NFL offense, so that's a plus.
Right, you'll comparatively look like an offense.
Right, but like, are you really going to compete and score like 24, 27, 28 points most weeks? Probably not. And then so then that leaves the Bills and the Dolphins. And the Dolphins obviously a very talented
last year, yeah.
Very talented team, and that's what it came down to last year, right? So this if it comes down to what it is last year, I'm still going to take the Bills until the Dolphins can like prove that they're not just like a bunch of, they're not frauds, because that's not what they are. They're a good team. They're a talented team, but like their win streak last year was largely against pretty lesser opponents. And then when they started hitting a tough spot in their schedule, they really struggled. So the Bills have been proven to be, bad teams and good teams. Until the Dolphins can prove that they can consistently go toe-to-toe against good teams and win consistently, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills.
I am really just trying to buy time here. I'm trying to give Brandon Beane as much time as he needs to make a signing. I don't necessarily think he's going to do it, which is sad. So I guess we have to go. I guess Pat's got rid of Jonnu. Awesome. Yeah, further devalue Kyle Pitts in fantasy. Thank you so much, Atlanta. Thank you guys for watching. Expect this outro is going to take me 4 minutes, so expect a Brandon Beane signing in 6 minutes. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel. The subscribe button is somewhere underneath me. Make sure to follow Cover One on all social media. I got muted.
You got muted.
How did I got mute? I got muted. I have no idea what happened.
I didn't do it.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Cover One YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social medias. And then also make sure to check out all of our shows. We have this show. We have the Air Raid Hour. We have Cover One Buffalo. We have Disguised Coverage. We have the Film Room. We have If the Walls Could Talk. We have Going Deep. We have Under Review. We have draft content all the time. Roy writes, Kyle upset we haven't re-signed Bobby Hart yet. Is he not? Is he a free agent? Oh,
No, he's not a free agent, right?
I'm done. I retire. Formally retire from this program.
Not a free agent.
Make sure to check out or subscribe to all the iTunes feed. Leave 5-star reviews or honest ones. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy and BetUS. Again, use promo code Cover1. Make sure to check out Cover1 One Pass. What is Cover1 One Pass? What a great question, audience member. That is our subscription service, if you will. Again, $57 for a year. What a great value. Become an insider. You get exclusive members only content, in-depth analysis, special previews, and access to the Cover1 Premium Slack, where you can talk to a bunch of Bills fans about a wide variety of topics all the damn time. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at.
You can follow me at DFAUXY or at DFoxy. Kyle, where can the people find you on the good Elon Musk app?
You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Thank you all for watching, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.